Yes. Hey, how's it going?
Good, good. How are you?
I'm doing great. Thanks again for reaching out and taking the time to do this interview.
Absolutely. Thank you. I am a big fan of what you do. You first off, you've been a supporter of Lunar from day one, which I appreciate. Um, but also, you've done lots of interviews and reviews of albums that I've been on, and lots of albums that I haven't been on, obviously. And I'm a big fan of your writing. It's always very thorough. So happy to do it.
Oh, I'm glad to be able to do this and be able to promote you just a little bit more with this because it means a lot because it's like we've known each other for quite a bit of time now, and I've seen the evolution of your playing, and of course over the years I've been discovering you can do more than just drums. I mean, you do excellent work with production, especially when we get into the Illusionist, your lyrical concepts and what you come up with. It's just like it's great to see that evolution of you just becoming a bigger, broader, stronger musician. It's just so
Thank
great to see that.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's nice. It's nice to have those aspects of it noticed as well. Because that's not typically something that's at the forefront of what I feel like I do a lot of times, or what I feel like I would be known for. You know what I mean? I'm the drummer. But you're right. I'm doing those other things too. So that's very cool. Thank you.
Absolutely. And don't get me wrong, you are an incredible drummer as well too. And if you
Thank you.
had to be known for something, I'm glad it's that because of what you're able to do, the different styles that you're able to accomplish. I mean, whether you're doing Latin grooves, whether you're doing jazz, whether you're doing blast beats, I mean, you're able to hit all of these different things and more. And it's, of course, the reason why we're talking here, you're able to show all of that off and more with the brand new album, The Illusionist.
Yeah. I feel like first off, thanks again. Yeah, I definitely I like to show a lot of those different genres. I mean, that's what makes music the most interesting to me, and why I feel like I'm drawn to proggy stuff anyway, because you never know where it's gonna go. And it's fun to take it in those different directions and get to explore those kind of different genres and subgenres within my playing or our playing as a whole with the band.
Yeah, absolutely. And of course, talking about that first Lunar album and how much I love that, and then seeing what you're able to do with the sophomore album as well, too, seeing that evolution. But again, like I've told you privately, like I've talked about in my top 10 albums of March 2022, it's just like this is the high watermark of the band so far. Like that, I know some other people disagree with me, and I don't understand why. But to me, this probably is the prog album of 2023, at least in my eyes. Like this is everything that I've wanted in an album, like your style of playing, and of course everyone else that you have a part of the band being able to explore all these different territories, whether you're hitting more Opeth vibes, whether you're hitting Symphony X, whether you're hitting 30s jazz, whether
uh,
you're hitting all these different territories musically. Of course, the musical compositions are incredible as well too. I love the diversity that goes on. And of course, the heart to heart that goes on. Like you and I have very similar mental health states. And
uh,
it's great to see that in this huge metaphor that's going on throughout the entire album. And of course, that ambiguous ending where it's almost like a choose your own ending kind of thing. Like
uh,
what happens?
yeah,
And it's like, is it a happy ending or a sad ending? It's
right.
just like you leave it up to the eye of the beholder.
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
it's just a reason to keep going back to the album, and you're able to explore more and more with it. And I
Mhm.
love the fact that this has come out, and it is I think it's the most personal album that you've done so far. I imagine it's got to be for you as well too. And it's just you put your heart and soul into it, and I love the way that it's paid off.
Thank you, thank you. I mean, you hit the nail on the head so well with it. Yeah, it's absolutely it is personal for one, with mental health struggles and a lot of it because it's not a secret, but also not something I talk about too much in interviews. But I deal with chronic pain, and I've had 4 back surgeries, and so it's taken its toll on me over the years, especially as a drummer. And there were years where I couldn't play drums and went through a lot of physical therapy and operations and stuff like that. So, a lot of what comes through in The Illusionist comes from experiences of that too, of just like I have to I have to push myself, I have to numb myself through the pain to get through this performance, or whatever it needs to be at that time. And then even if you take that out of it, if you're just a musician in today's age, you're going to question what you're doing in general, because it's such a difficult industry to make it in these days. And by make it, I don't mean like arena performances necessarily, worldwide tours, but I just mean make a solid living at, and it's something that for me, I've worked at since I was 13 years old, and I'm 35 now, and just feel like I'm just starting to see like some kind of payoffs of like, oh, okay, maybe I can support myself at this. So obviously you spend years kind of questioning of like, what am I doing here? Is this even worth it? So all of that goes into it, and then you definitely hit it too with the ending, with the choose your own ending kind of thing. It's I wanted to leave it up for interpretation of the listener, and really be like, you can take it so many different ways of, is it the happy ending or the sad ending, and there's kind of some in between too.
Yeah, absolutely. And you said it's so true, especially in today's day and age, it is so hard to make a living at it. I mean, you can get like rave reception if people check it out, and you can get spread word and social media and streaming and there's like so many different ways to be able to check out bands now, but there's so many bands that are out there doing the exact same thing.
Right,
And
right.
it's hard enough being a musician to be able to make any kind of living off of it, or start to make that attempt. But to do
Hmm.
that with only one band is nearly impossible
Right, right.
nowadays. And the fact that you are able to work with so many great musicians, you're able to do so many great guest spots, and you're able to spread your wings outside of Lunar as well too. I mean, it's like of course I imagine financially that's got to help a little bit more as well too, but I love the fact that you're able to show off your creativity in so many different avenues.
Thanks. Yeah, yeah. I enjoy it too. Really, part of it I feel like was born out of necessity of, like you're saying, of just like you can't do just one thing. There's no way I'd be able to support myself, support my family off of just one thing. And so it is born out of that necessity, but I enjoy doing it. I love the fact that I'll do Lunar, I'll do Helium Prime, I'll do session work for random people that hit me up and say like, "Hey, I'm a fan of your drumming style. I need you on a track or on an album, whatever it may be." And yeah, let's work something out. That's cool. I love to get to explore that. And then I also teach as well, and that's rewarding in its own sense. And so you put all of those things together, and that's, I feel like, the modern day musician of like how you're gonna find a way to make a living is, you got to teach, you got to do sessions, you got to do private lessons, you got to do streaming, possibly putting out albums, whatever it is. But I definitely enjoy getting to explore a lot of that, because I've got to play on a lot of like more power metal albums, which is not something that I would have done myself. That Lunar wouldn't have explored any of that aspect on its own, I feel, had I not had the influence of joining Helium Prime and getting to play with bands like that and Planeswalker and Judicator.
And I imagine that you have a greater appreciation for those styles of music now too. Once you started
Absolutely.
getting into it.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, when I met Jason Ashcraft of Helium Prime, when he and I first met, I feel like my power metal knowledge was very tiny. Like I had only explored a handful of bands, and he introduced me to a lot more. I feel like introducing me to bands like Symphony X, even that I never really listened to before that, actually. And it kind of opened my eyes to a lot of the prog power crossover.
Yeah, and again, when you are able to adapt to all these different situations, you're able to learn, you're able to put more colors into your musical palettes, it's going to show off in different ways. And
Uh-huh.
again, you can bring that all the way back here to the Illusionist, because every single song on the album is different. And
Yeah.
I love that. I know some people feel like it's too abstract. To
Uh-huh.
me, that hits all of the different territories that I love to listen to, whether it gets super heavy, whether it gets more melodic, whether it gets a little poppy, whether it's a throwback to styles before our parents were even born. It's
Right.
just like it's you're able to appreciate all of these different things into one album. And again, like the more that you listen to it, the more it all makes sense. And it is like a musician's album in a sense, because if you only stick to one style of music, you're not able to really grow and be able to show off everything that you could potentially be capable of.
Uh,
Whereas yourself, you're able to take on all these different things, whether you're familiar with the styles or not, and you're
right.
able to incorporate it into other things as well too, like the Illusionist.
Uh-huh. Yeah, yeah. It's fun to get to explore those things like you're saying. And I sorry, I just brain farted big time, was what I was gonna say. um it's let's see, it'll come back to me. You might have to edit this out. Exploring all the different styles. We like you said, it expands the musical palette, and with the Illusionist in particular, like we have such diversity, and it does it can be too abstract for people. I definitely get that. There are people out there that are just going to say, like, I just want it to be a death metal album, or I want it to be a pop album, or I want it to be a jazz album. I don't want all three of those things put, and more into the same thing. But for me personally, and like what you're saying, I love that. Like, I love the aspect of having all these different influences and sounds, and that to me is what makes the album more unique, and I'm very proud of it for that fact, because every song does sound very different. But to me it still has a cohesive flow to it, and the different styles that go throughout it, I feel like really approach the particular arc of the story, or that what the character is going through at that time. I feel like it helps with that too.
Yeah, I was just gonna bring that up. It's just like the variety of music that goes on. Philosophically, when you look at the lyrics and you look at the themes that are going on, it's like that also reacts to different human emotions, and especially
Uh,
when you're dealing with self doubt or depression, anxiety, like all these different things, it brings
mhm,
on different kinds of emotions and different
right,
feelings that goes on throughout it. So sometimes you feel like you have to, just completely blast all the way through and just get those anger emotions through. Sometimes
right,
it gets much more dark and depressing. Sometimes you feel better and you feel a little happier.
yeah.
It's just like it's never stagnant. It always changes for the better or for worse. When you're dealing with those
Uh-huh.
struggles, it's never stagnant.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. And I feel like, even from the listener standpoint too, like you're saying, the emotions that you go through on a day-to-day basis, whether it's mental health struggles that you deal with regularly or occasionally, there's going to be those times where, if music is kind of one of your go-tos, like it is for so many of us, to help through negative emotions, you will approach those different kind of aspects of, like, right now I feel down and I want to listen to say, I want to listen to Porcupine Tree and know that somebody out there is just as depressed as I am, or there's times where you say, I'm just angry and I want to listen to Cannibal Corpse, and anywhere in between. And so to me, it's a lot of fun to get to encompass those kind of things into one album and go through that ride with the character, going all between all of these things.
Yeah, absolutely. And I'm thinking about that for myself as well too. I mean, even just looking at it from the musical standpoint, it's just like when I'm listening to music throughout the day, it's like I love being able to have different variety. I mean, some days you just want to listen to the same style, but there's
Yeah.
other days where I can go from funeral doom metal to listening to electric callboy.
Uh-huh.
Like going back to back, it's like it's
Uh-huh.
that yin and yang that goes
Yeah.
on, it's and the different feelings that go on with that. And you
Uh-huh.
want to be able to experience different emotions and feelings and things that are going on through that. But again, like through mental health struggles, whether you're dealing with it long term or short term, you can't always control those things.
Yeah.
And again, when you listen to the album, it almost feels like you're not in control. which
Right,
I do appreciate because
uh-huh.
sometimes it feels like it makes a complete left of center turn, especially the first time you listen to it and you don't expect it. But the more you listen to it, it's like the more you understand why it's going through that, whether it's just musically or thematically.
Uh-huh. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I love I love every aspect of hearing you say this because it's clear to me that it you got it. You know what I mean? It's exactly right. You it can be jarring, especially on first listen. I imagine, like at this point, for me, I've desensitized to it in a sense of just because I've heard it so many times from the writing process and everything. But on a first listen, I can't imagine for how jarring it can be for somebody taking those weird left turns of like I did not expect this, but like you're saying, that goes with the mental health struggles and what the character in the album is going through as well. Is it's taking these turns that you don't expect, and the character feels out of control sometimes, and it brings to light all of the struggles that come with that.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, I love the fact that you again, like you put your heart and soul into this, and especially the more that you listen to the album, the more you listen to the lyrics, the more that you start to understand what's going on with it. You can really see what's going on. Of course, metaphorically, it's told through a story and
Yeah.
creative choices to not make it completely lifelike, but
Right. Right.
just to make it a great cohesive story. And again, the ending, because we don't know our endings yet, we're
Yeah.
still both here, but
Uh-huh.
just being able to have those adventurous paths. And again, I love the fact that you wanted to tackle this in Lunar and just being able to put something together like this. Like, is this something you've always wanted to do, or is it like something that came to you later? How did that come about?
Honestly, it wasn't something that I had like in my head of like this is something I want to do at some point. It just came to me of just it just came out naturally, which is how I feel. Um, that's what Lunar has to be for me. All of it is just like it may be a week in between writing music, it may be a couple years, whatever it is. It's when that inspiration is there, I just let it out. And with this one, it was exactly that. It was just like the idea came to me, and it just I just went for it. Didn't even give it a second thought of like, oh, what am I putting out there, what is this? It just happened naturally, really.
So thinking about that as well, like how did that feel for you when you started penning the lyrics to this?
um that's a good question, but honestly, it wasn't much of anything, and I know that sounds bad, but it wasn't so it wasn't so much of just like this. It wasn't cathartic. It didn't need to get out. It was more of just again, like it just came out, and it was more of after the fact reflecting on it, of being like, oh damn, okay, that was real, like that came out. And so again, I'm really proud of it, and but it didn't resonate as much while it was happening as much as it did after the fact, if that makes sense.
Oh, totally. And I think that says a lot about your musicianship and songwriting style, where you didn't feel like you needed to force a notion. You didn't have to, you didn't want to make it feel like it has to go in a particular way. It just came out of you naturally. And then when you're able to look back and, it's like, oh, wow, this reflects on me as well, too. Here I was thinking I was just writing a story, but it
Uh-huh.
turns out I was writing about myself as well.
Right.
I think that again shows that, it's like obviously it's, a metaphor for what's going on in your life, but it's also for my life. It's for anyone else that's dealing with struggles like that. It's for anyone that goes through those struggles. And I think again, that's a great way of being a great lyricist when you're able to make it about yourself, but it's also to everyone else that can listen to it.
Yeah, yeah. It's thank you again. It definitely was that, in that I wanted it to be I felt the connection to myself in what I was writing, in a sense, where like I'd see the hints of, oh, my little metaphors here and there of things that I relate to myself, but trying to put it into this bigger story of a character. And again, it wasn't until after the fact that it was just like, yeah, this is so much more of myself than I realized at the time. But I think I also wanted it to be, this fictional character and have it be the illusionist and have this choose your own ending so that more people could relate to it. I wanted it to be more metaphorical, like you're saying, so that more people can say, I relate to this. I get this, and I feel this.
Oh, very much so, and I appreciate it for that. I mean, obviously, like a full-on cohesive story from start to finish is a way to be able to do it. But again, like you just mentioned, being able to have it adapt to everyone that's listening to it, I really love and appreciate that. And again, it's just amazing to think about that. Like when you're just like when you find this inspiration and it turns out to be a concept album, when it turns out to be so many things that are about yourself, metaphorically about yourself, about people in general, and it's just a great, entertaining story as well too. I love the fact that it's not just woe is me the whole time. It is just a really great. It is a great story.
Thank you. Yeah, and yeah, like you said, it has to come from that natural place for me because if you go back to the second Lunar album, Eidolon, that was at the point I wasn't even sure that the band was going to continue because Ryan Irwin, who I founded the band with, had passed away, and that album was very personal as well because the inspiration came to me of just like, why don't I just write something about my grieving process of losing my friend. And so that one came out, and then beyond that, the questioning started of just like, do I even go beyond this, or do I just call it with that? And then it was, I think, kind of some of that questioning of what I was doing that led to the mindset that gave the inspiration for the Illusionist.
Oh, absolutely, for sure. And thinking about it, no, I mean, obviously, like, once you started listening to the songs, once you started realizing what everything was about, like, when you listen to it back for like the first time, like, when you got everything done, mixed, mastered, everything, like, oh, how did you feel once you had that first listen?
I mean, not to be egotistical or anything, but I mean, I was grinning ear to ear when I heard it back finished. I was and still am just so proud. It turned out like I'll say almost exactly as I wanted because there's always any musician knows you'll nitpick every little thing that you've done forever. So, but this was as close to perfect as I've ever gotten with what I wanted to put out there. It came out really as I envisioned it and more, and bringing in a lot of the guest musicians and stuff, and bringing Alex Nasla on keyboards and having his addition to the music as well really added a lot of emotion to it. I felt, and it helped with it wasn't so much like a missing piece from before, but having that added extra element, it was just like this just makes it hit even harder. And so I know, sorry, I'm kind of rambling with this, but ultimately I was so thrilled to hear it back, and I thought to myself that this one is it. This is definitely the best that we've done so far, no doubt about it.
Oh yeah, and no, feel free to ramble because you covered a lot of what I wanted to say. It's just like the fact that like the additional keys that are on this album, I think it brought a whole new level to the album that might not have been there had he not been a part of this.
Yeah,
All the amazing guest musicians that are able to make their signature stamps on here, and you got them from so many musicians that I love and have gotten to talk to in the past as well too,
yeah,
and of course, all of that is so cool to have, but unless you have that great production behind it, it could just sound like a garbled mess.
yeah.
Whereas this sounds so clear, it sounds so punchy. Like the highs sound so great, the lows feel so good coming through my sound systems, like and everything in between. Like, obviously, again, like you are known for your drumming work as you should be, but your production skills are just getting better and better. And I love the production on this album. It just sounds incredible.
Well, thank you for one, but I think all credit on the production we got to give to Fascination Street Studios to Linus and Jens. They really knocked it out of the park with this, and we struggled in the early stages with this because we started the tracking of the Illusionist right when COVID lockdown started. It started in March of 2020, and it was in my little home studio setup that you see behind me. The Illusionist was literally the first thing I ever recorded in this room, and so it was very much we had to learn along the way because so many of us were recording ourselves for the first time because we didn't have the option of going to an outside studio because of lockdowns, you know. So I had already kind of planned that I was going to go in that direction for myself, but for Ryan Price, the bassist, and Balmore, the guitarist, they were also tracking in their homes by themselves for the first time, and so there was a lot of trial and error going on. And you know, Balmore actually had to record the album, I think it was 3 times all the way through because he had to redo it from learning from what he was doing tracking himself. And so I was really nervous about the production quality of just like, hey, we don't know what we're doing yet, you know, like we're figuring this out. But that was why I wanted to send it off to a place like Fascination Street, because it was like, I know if anybody out in this world is going to get the sound that we want out of this album, it's you guys, you know. And they knocked it out of the park. I mean, like, it was, you know, I sent it off, and then when they sent it back, it was like, do you have notes? And it was pretty much just like, nope, you got it. I got no notes, you know. So yeah, really hats off to them for what they did in taking all of our home done tracks and helping us along the way of learning to produce and record our own stuff, you know.
Oh, that's so great to hear that too. You know, again, you know, it's just like it also goes to show like working with the right people and making sure that you get along with them, that they're working towards the same goals in mind, making sure that everything goes in the right direction. It just makes everything so much smoother to be able to make everything work. And of course, when yeah, again, Linus and Jens, who are just phenomenal at what they do on the production side. Again, you know, obviously you got to be able to set up the mics and be able to do all the stuff like drum wise,
Yeah,
and
yeah,
of course everyone else being able to record their parts. I mean, the fact that it got re-recorded a few times, you know, it's a learning process. But
yeah.
again, it almost again ties into the album again, like thematically, because you know it's just like there's so much trial and error, and you wonder if
Uh-huh.
you are going in the right direction and if this is all
Yeah,
worth it. But again,
right.
you know, just like looking at the final product now and just seeing what you did, and you know, it's just like at least to me, it feels like the crowning achievement of what you've done so far. And I imagine that the other guys in the band have got to be feeling similar feelings as well.
Yeah, yeah. I think it's pretty universal all the way around that everybody is, you know, is feels like, and no knocks of the previous albums, because again, it's part of the journey, you know what I mean. We learned from those albums and got us to the point of doing this one. But I think this one is the best so far, and that's how it should be. I want to keep growing and keep getting better, and I hope the next one is even better than this one. But i'm I'm intimidated almost because this one came out so well of what I wanted it to be, that I'm just like, well, now the questioning begins again, you know, like, am I ever going to top that, or should I just call it right here, you know? And which I'm not going to. But it's you know, the thought, it still crosses your mind from time to time, you know.
Oh, absolutely. When you deal with those struggles, that's going to constantly happen. And I imagine even with this album, there's always those nagging feelings of, oh, I could have done this better. This could have been better, this, that, and so forth. But,
Mhm.
you know, it's just like I've seen a lot of people give this great praise. I give it great praise, obviously. But, you know, just like I can see it in yourself that you are so happy with the way that this has turned out. And yeah, again, I say so far because I don't feel like this is going to be the best work you ever do. I feel like that's going to be coming in the future. And
Well, thanks.
I'm just looking at your setup that you got going on here. Like, I love your drums setup so much. Like, if I had that setup, I would just be playing that every single day, and I'd be trying to take on as much work as possible as well too. So I totally understand why you have the home setup that you do, because I imagine it's fun and you get to be able to explore so many different musical styles as
I,
well.
yeah, definitely, and it makes for, it was kind of a convenience factor as well, because of the, just life in general, and lockdowns like we talked about, and I have two young kids, and so every day is just hectic. I mean, like, even today, as soon as I finish here with you, I have to go get one of my daughters, and then I'm getting on a plane to go do a gig in Canada tomorrow. And so it's just hectic all the time, and so having the setup here makes it so much more possible for me to take on more stuff, to be like, okay, I can fit this in these parts of my schedule in between everything else that's going on, and don't have to worry about booking time at an outside studio, paying more money for that, which in turn would make me have to charge more for what I'm doing, travel costs, whatever else it may be. So it really came from a, like, this just makes more sense to do it this way.
Absolutely. And again, it's just like obviously with the setup right there, at least from my side, it's over here. I'm also looking over here too, and just like seeing the different snares that you got, bass drum and hardware and stuff like that. Like, how much changes do you make when you are doing a recording? Like, do you mainly use this setup to record everything, or do you switch anything else? Like, how does that go about?
It does switch out occasionally, but for the most part, it stays pretty much what it is. Like, this is my recording kit that just stays put. It's a Thomas Star Bubinga, and it gets incredible, again, diverse tones. I feel like I can get anything that I want out of these drums for whatever styles I'm doing. And but more of what will switch up depending on the gig would be the snare or the cymbal setup that I would need. But I like to have all this stuff out here so that I can kind of explore more. So I don't have a camera. I wish I did so I could show more, but we've got some keys and synthesizers and the extra snare drums. And that guy up there actually was the bass drum of my very first drum set when I was a kid. So, and then if you can kind of see over in this corner, we got a lot of like random percussion stuff
Yeah.
too that I like to explore. And you hear some of that stuff on various albums. There's some on the Illusionist, on like on Worship the Sun in particular. There's a lot of fun shakers and bongos and stuff like that. A lot of interesting percussion stuff that I got to do. The song For My Next Trick, the instrumental near the end of the album, there's no actual kit drums on that. I just played on an LP Dharma drum, and with play with mallets, and so that's the bit that you hear at like the very opening of that song.
Thinking about that song in particular, I was gonna ask this before and I totally forgot, but the spoken word that goes along with that, was that something that was pre-recorded, or did you just use some magical production powers to make it sound like it was recorded in the 30s?
Um, so the sound bits, all of them on that album actually are taken from the movie of the same name, The Illusionist.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yes. Yes. And so it's funny because there's been people who understandably have said that the movie influenced the album, and actually that's not the case. It was I had the idea for the album and was writing the music, and then after it was coming to be, I was talking to Jason from Helium Prime, and I was telling him about, like, oh, this is the new Lunar stuff that I'm working on, and he was like, oh, there's an Edward Norton movie called The Illusionist. I was like, oh, really? I've never seen it. And so I had never heard of it at that point. So it was like, okay, well, if I'm doing this, I guess I should check that out. So I went and watched the movie and was like, oh, actually, there's a couple little bits I could pull that would work really well in this. So the ones, all of them that you hear, that one in For My Next Trick, the one at the very beginning of the album, and the one at the very end of the album, all taken from that movie, actually.
Yeah, I hadn't seen it, so I had no idea if you just had like that idea to be able to record those sound bits, or if those were sound clips from the past. So it's cool how it worked out that way. It's just
Yeah.
like not even having that idea to use the movie for inspiration. I imagine the Scar Symmetry song was also not an inspiration for the album either for the Illusionist.
Nope.
So
Nope.
so
I
it's just like
haven't
it's just
heard
a good
that
idea.
either.
It's just a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah. No, now I'm gonna have to go check out that Scar Symmetry song because I haven't heard that either.
Yeah, it's their biggest song when you look at it. It's like it's got like the most views and everything. But
Really?
pretty good Swedish melodic death metal. If that's up your alley, I think you might enjoy that.
Yeah, I mean, everything's up my alley,
Alley.
and hence the diversity of the Illusionist. Hey, I will I want to listen to anything and get some kind of inspiration from it if I can.
Oh, awesome. Well, sadly, I'm running on just a few minutes left here because Zoom likes to cut you off unless you like to pay hundreds of dollars a year to be able to keep it going. But this has been a great talk and everything. Before we go, I want to make sure that I cover things that are coming up. Obviously, you mentioned you got a gig coming up in Canada tomorrow. I imagine that there's some other stuff. So yeah, plug away everything that you got going on.
All right, let's see. We got if you're, I don't know if this will be up in time this weekend. Hyperspace Metal Festival in Vancouver. If you're in that area,
I
I'll
am
be
planning on having this up like I'm gonna edit out that one little part, but I'm planning on having this up in a couple hours.
awesome. Yeah. So anybody that sees this, if you're in the Vancouver area, come out to Hyperspace Metal Festival this weekend. I will be there. I'll be playing drums for Grave Shadow. And but also there are tons of other bands there. Ex Mortis is there. Lords of the Trident. Judicator is there, who I played on their most recent album. Yeah, doing that this weekend. In August, I will be in Wisconsin, playing at Mad with Power Fest for of Romulus, which features Jason and Heather, current and former members of Helium Prime, doing a new Star Trek themed band. And they just released their first single today, actually.
I'm gonna have to check that out.
Let's see what else. I got a couple other albums that'll probably be out this year, but nothing is 100% certain yet and no dates yet. So I'm playing with the Obsidian Resurrections, kind of a melodic death metal band that I played with when I was a teenager, and that we kind of revived that to do an album that we should have done years ago and never got the chance to, and now we are. That'll hopefully be out later this year. And that's all I can think of right now that I can talk about. Yeah.
Oh, awesome. And a little bit of time to spare too. So I get to say my final thoughts on everything. I just want to thank you again for taking the time to do this. Like I've loved your work ever since I found out about you, ever since we started talking, ever since I started to get to check out your music. And I love the fact that we've kept in touch all this time, that I've been able to help promote you, whether it's through reviews now on YouTube as well too, but also in written form that I've been doing over the years, promoting Lunar, promoting Helium Prime, promoting all these other great projects that you've been a part of in some way, shape, or form. Some of them I can't even keep track of and I completely miss out on, but I love the fact that you are keeping so busy, being able to explore all these different musical endeavors, getting to create some of the greatest drum sounds out of that kit. I mean, of course, that comes from the Tema Babinga. I mean, that's going to happen with that. And of course, it's not going to sound good unless you have an amazing player behind that. And you are an incredible musician in all realms. Like, I love your drum work. I love what you do with production. I love what you do with songwriting. And I'm just so excited to see everything that comes up in the future. And of course, anyone listening and checking this out right now, go check out the brand new album from Lunar, The Illusionist. It's available now. It's through your own label, I believe, right? Or is that?
It's Sabot Reigns Records, which is again Jason. It's his label that we put out. We put out the Planeswalker album on that label, and now this one as well.
Yeah. So absolutely check it out through there. And again, I'm glad that we got to have a one-on-one like this again, and I hope we get to do it again in the future because I love promoting all your musical endeavors.
Yeah, I can't thank you enough for the support over the years, and again with how thorough you've been with everything, and I really appreciate it. So thank you for taking the time to do this with me. I appreciate it.